Hey everyone, Jamie here from TechnicalCafe.com. Welcome to your 9th Java tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be talking about while loops in Java and how we can go about using them to automate our Java programs, and at the same time how we can go about using while loops to help us write less code and make our programs smaller, and more compact, I guess you could say. So just like a for loop, a while loop is a type of repetitive or iterative statement, and there are a couple differences and a couple similarities between for and while loops, which we'll talk about as we go on through the tutorial. So let's go ahead and learn the syntax for a while loop. So to write a while loop, what we're going to do is just write while, which highlights as purple because it's a Java reserved word. And we're going to follow that with a set of parentheses where our condition is going to be for the while loop. And we're going to follow that with a set of curly braces. So just like with a for loop and if statements and stuff like that, whatever is between these this set of curly braces is what's going to be executed each time the while loop runs. Or another way of saying that is for each iteration of the while loop, whatever is between these is going to be executed or run by the program. So let's say, for example, we want to write a program that counts from 1 to 10 and displays that to the screen. So one way we can do that is by using a while loop, similar to how we did it with a for loop in the previous tutorial. So with a while loop, unlike a for loop, we're not going to have 3 conditions in here. If you recall with the for loop, we had a beginning, ending, and iterative condition. In the while loop, what we're going to be doing, though, is something a little bit different. A while loop checks for Boolean true or false within the condition here. So what we're going to be doing each time the while loop runs is checking to see whether the condition between these parentheses is evaluated as true, in which case the loop will iterate one more time, or if it's evaluated as false, in which case the loop will stop. So let's go ahead and create a variable, an integer variable up here, and we'll say int I, we'll just call it I, equals 1. And why we're not defining this in here is because we're checking for equality, for Boolean true or false rather, and this would not evaluate to either true or false because it's an assignment statement. So we can't be doing that within this the conditions here of the while loop. So let's go ahead and say while I is less than or equal to 10, and this can be evaluated as Boolean true or false. What we're going to do is print out the value of I, and let's go ahead and run this. And you'll notice what happens now is that we'll just get a bunch of 1s that keep getting printed to the screen, and you'll notice that it actually hasn't stopped. So what we've done is created an infinite loop. And the reason for this infinite loop, let me just actually stop that. The reason for the infinite loop is because nothing happens to the value of I each time the loop goes on. So this is forever going to be true that I is less than or equal to 10 because I is always going to be 1. So what we're going to have to do in this situation is create some way to update the value of I. So to do that, what we can do is just say I++, which is the same thing as saying I equals I plus 1. And let's go ahead and run this. And notice now that we have the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 printed to the screen. So we've essentially did what we did in our previous tutorial with our for loop. We can go ahead and shorten this down by just saying I++, and notice that when we actually go ahead and compile and run this, we're going to get the same results. So with while loops, it's important to try to avoid creating an infinite loop. And one way to do that would just actually be to come over here and just say true. It's never a good idea unless you have some type of intention for it to just say while true, because the loop will continue running unless you find some type of way to create a condition inside of it, maybe using an if statement or using a break statement to break out for some reason. You notice that if we do that, we're just going to keep getting all these huge numbers here. So let's go ahead and stop that. So similarly, you're never going to want to say while false because the loop's never going to execute. You'll notice that we have these errors here. So that's why you would never go about doing that. So the reason for it, you want to use a while loop over a for loop, for example, is when you don't know how many times you're going to have the loop run. For example, let's say you have a file full of text or names or something like that you're going to want to read into your program. You're not usually going to know in advance how many names or lines of text or numbers or whatever is in the file. So what you're going to want to do is use a while loop, and you can say, for example, while the file has another line of text, keep it running, and then the while loop will stop when it runs out of text or lines of whatever. Whereas a for loop, you're probably going to want to know how many lines there are in advance to get the loop to work. So this is one of the advantages of a while loop. You can use it when you don't know for sure how many lines they're going to be or how many times you're going to want the loop to iterate. So feel free to play around with while loops. Maybe add a while loop within a while loop, see what happens. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to post them in the comments section below. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/JamieMCG. And alternatively, if you're not interested in what I'm doing personally, you can just use the Technical Cafe Twitter, twitter.com/TechnicalCafe. Thank you for watching and have a great day.